kind nurse risks her body to save a stranger, not knowing he's a millionaire who rewards her. It was a quiet Sunday morning in downtown Seattle when Claire Reynolds, a nurse who had just finished a grueling 12-hour night shift, sat alone in a small corner cafe. Her hands were wrapped around a warm cup of coffee, and all she could think about was getting home and crawling into bed. The rain had started gently, tapping against the window like a lullaby, but within minutes it turned heavy, sending pedestrians scrambling for cover. Claire barely noticed. Her mind was somewhere between exhaustion and the quiet satisfaction of knowing she'd helped 3 patients make it through the night. She was ready to go home, sleep until her next shift, and do it all over again. But fate had other plans. Across the street, a man in an expensive grey coat stumbled. At first, it looked like he'd slipped on the wet pavement, but then his knees buckled and he collapsed hard onto the sidewalk. People stopped. They stared. Some pulled out their phones, but no one moved. Claire's head snapped up. Her nurse instincts didn't wait for her brain to catch up. She was out the door before her coffee cup hit the table. Rain drenched her scrubs in seconds as she sprinted across the street, her sneakers splashing through puddles. She dropped to her knees beside the man, her hands already checking his neck for a pulse. It was there, barely, faint, uneven, fading. "Call an ambulance!" she screamed to the frozen crowd. Her voice cut through the rain like a knife. Someone finally moved, fumbling for their phone. Claire tilted the man's head back, cleared his airway, and pressed her ear to his chest. No breath. His lips were turning blue. Without hesitation, she locked her hands together, positioned them over his sternum, and began compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. She counted in her head, pushing down hard and fast, her arms burning with each thrust. Rain poured over her face, mixing with the sweat already forming on her brow. 30 compressions. She pinched his nose, tilted his chin, and gave 2 rescue breaths. His chest rose slightly, then fell. Nothing. She went back to compressions, her heart pounding in her ears. "Come on," she whispered through gritted teeth. "Breathe. Please, breathe." What Claire didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have known as she fought to bring this stranger back to life, was that the man lying unconscious on that rain-soaked sidewalk was Logan Pierce, a millionaire investor worth over $200 million, and the moment she saved his life was the moment both of their worlds would change forever. Before we continue, if you're new to this channel and you love real stories about love, hope, and life-changing moments, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. And for everyone watching right now, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I love connecting with you all. Now, let's get back to Claire and Logan's story. Seconds stretched into what felt like hours. Claire's shoulders screamed in protest. Her hands were numb, but she didn't stop. She couldn't, because this man, this stranger whose name she didn't know, whose face she could barely see through the rain, was dying right in front of her. And Claire Reynolds had spent her entire adult life refusing to let that happen. Not on her watch. Not today. Then, after what felt like an eternity but was really only 2 minutes, the man gasped. A weak, choking sound. But it was a breath. His eyelids fluttered. Claire's heart soared. She rolled him gently onto his side, shielding his body with her own as the rain continued to hammer down. She whispered words of comfort, her voice soft now, soothing. "You're okay. Help is coming. You're going to be okay." The sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The paramedics arrived, taking over with practiced efficiency. Claire stepped back, soaked to the bone, her hands trembling. One of the paramedics glanced at her, recognition flickering in his eyes. "You work at Mercy General, right?" She nodded, too exhausted to speak. "Good work, nurse. You saved his life." Claire didn't respond. She just watched as they loaded the man into the ambulance, lights flashing, sirens blaring. And then, as quietly as she had arrived, she walked away. No fanfare, no applause, just another day, just another life. Claire Reynolds had always been the kind of person who put others first. It wasn't something she thought about, it was just who she was. Growing up in a small town in Oregon, she'd been the oldest of 3 siblings. Her parents worked long hours at the local mill, so Claire became the default caretaker. She made lunches, helped with homework, bandaged scraped knees, and stayed up late when her younger brother, Daniel, had nightmares. Daniel was the baby of the family. Sweet, curious, always asking questions. Claire adored him. When she was 16 and Daniel was 8, he was hit by a car while riding his bike home from school. Claire was the first one to reach him. She held his hand in the back of the ambulance, whispering that everything would be okay. But it wasn't. He didn't make it. That day changed everything. Claire couldn't save her brother, but she could save others. She threw herself into her studies, graduated top of her class, and put herself through nursing school on scholarships and part-time jobs. She moved to Seattle 5 years ago, drawn by the energy of the city and the opportunities at Mercy General, a busy public hospital that served everyone, regardless of their ability to pay. It was chaotic, underfunded, and chronically understaffed. But Claire loved it. She loved the patients. She loved the teamwork. She loved the feeling that came with pulling someone back from the edge. It was the closest thing to redemption she'd ever found. Her apartment was small, a one-bedroom in a neighborhood that was safe but far from glamorous. The rent took up most of her paycheck, and she lived simply. No car, no fancy clothes, just scrubs, sneakers, and the occasional splurge on takeout. Her co-workers often joked that she worked too much, that she needed to get out more, maybe go on a date. Claire would smile and shrug it off. She didn't have time for dating. She barely had time to sleep. And honestly, she was okay with that. Work gave her purpose. It filled the empty spaces. It kept the memories at bay. That Sunday morning, after she'd left the man on the sidewalk and walked the 15 blocks home in the rain, Claire peeled off her soaked scrubs and stepped into the shower. The hot water felt like heaven on her aching muscles. She stood there for a long time, letting the steam fill the small bathroom, her mind replaying the scene over and over. The man's face, the color draining from his lips. The moment his chest rose again, she wondered if he'd be okay, if he'd make it. She'd done everything right, she knew that. But sometimes, even when you do everything right, it's not enough. She thought about Daniel. She always thought about Daniel. Turning off the water, Claire wrapped herself in a towel and fell into bed, her hair still damp. She was asleep within seconds. She didn't dream. She never did anymore. When she woke up 6 hours later, the rain had stopped. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, painting stripes across the floor. Claire sat up, rubbed her eyes, and reached for her phone. 12 missed calls, 8 texts, all from the hospital. Her stomach dropped. Had something happened? She opened the first text. It was from her supervisor, Linda. "Claire, call me as soon as you can. It's important." Her heart raced as she dialed. Linda picked up on the first ring. "Claire, thank God. Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "What's going on?" "There's a man here asking for you. Says you saved his life this morning." Claire blinked. "What?" "Apparently, you performed CPR on some guy downtown. He wants to meet you. He's been here for over an hour." Claire's mind went blank. She hadn't expected this. She never expected anything. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, she said, already pulling on a clean pair of jeans. "Claire," Linda said, her voice dropping to a whisper, "this guy, he's not just anyone. He came with a lawyer and security. I think he's rich. Like, really rich." Claire didn't know what to say. "I'll be there soon," she repeated, and hung up. As she grabbed her keys and headed out the door, a strange feeling settled in her chest. Not fear, exactly, but something close, something unfamiliar. Anticipation. The city was still wet from the morning rain, the streets gleaming under the afternoon sun. Claire took the bus to the hospital, her thoughts racing the entire way. Why would he want to meet her? People didn't usually do that. She'd saved lives before. It was her job. No one had ever tracked her down afterward. When she walked into Mercy General, the familiar smell of antiseptic and floor cleaner greeted her. It was home. Linda was waiting near the nurse's station, her eyes wide with a mix of excitement and disbelief. "He's in the conference room," she said, pointing down the hall. "Good luck." Claire took a deep breath and walked toward the room, her sneakers squeaking against the linoleum. Through the glass window, she saw him, the man from the street. He was sitting at the table, dressed in a dark suit now, his hair neatly combed. He looked different, stronger, alive. Next to him sat a woman in a sharp blazer, her laptop open, and a man in a black jacket who was clearly security. Claire hesitated. Then she pushed open the door. All three of them looked up. The man stood immediately, and for a moment they just stared at each other. "Miss Reynolds," he said, his voice low and steady, "I owe you my life." Claire stood in the doorway, suddenly very aware of how out of place she felt. She was in jeans and an old sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, no makeup. Meanwhile, the man in front of her looked like he'd stepped out of a business magazine. Polished, composed, powerful, but his eyes, dark and intense, held something softer. Gratitude, maybe even vulnerability. "You don't owe me anything," Claire said quietly, stepping into the room. "I'm just glad you're okay." He smiled, a small, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "I'm Logan Pierce." He extended his hand. Claire shook it. His grip was firm, warm. "Claire Reynolds." "I know," he said. "I've been trying to find you all day." The woman at the table cleared her throat. "Mr. Pierce has been very insistent." Claire glanced at her, then back at Logan. "You really didn't have to come all the way here. I was just doing my job." "No," Logan said, his tone firm but kind. "What you did this morning went far beyond a job. You saved my life. In the rain, with your bare hands. You didn't even know who I was." Claire shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. "I didn't need to know who you were. You needed help." Logan studied her for a long moment, and Claire had the strange sensation of being truly seen. Not as a nurse, not as a name on a chart, but as a person. It was unsettling and oddly comforting. "Please, sit," Logan said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Claire hesitated, then sat. The woman, who introduced herself as Amanda, Logan's attorney, slid a folder across the table. "Mr. Pierce would like to express his gratitude in a tangible way," Amanda said in a crisp, professional tone. Claire frowned. "That's really not necessary." "I disagree," Logan said, leaning forward. "Miss Reynolds, do you know what happened to me this morning?" "You had a cardiac arrest," Claire said simply. "The paramedics told me. I was dead," Logan said bluntly. "For over a minute, my heart wasn't beating. If you hadn't been there, if you hadn't acted as quickly as you did, I wouldn't be sitting here right now." Claire's throat tightened. She didn't like thinking about it that way. "I'm glad I was there then." "So am I," Logan said, "which is why I want to do something for you, for this hospital." Claire's eyes widened. "The hospital?" Amanda opened the folder. Inside were architectural plans, budget projections, and legal documents. "Mr. Pierce would like to fund the expansion and modernization of Mercy General's Emergency Care Unit," Amanda explained. "New equipment, additional staff, updated facilities. Everything this hospital needs to save more lives, the way you saved his." Claire stared at the papers, her mind struggling to process what she was hearing. "I don't understand. This is millions of dollars. $3 million to be exact," Logan said calmly. "And it's not charity, it's investment. In the people who do what you do every single day." Claire shook her head, overwhelmed. "I can't accept this. I didn't save you so you'd give me money or build something in my name." "I know," Logan said gently. "That's exactly why I want to do it." The room fell silent. Claire looked down at the plans, her heart racing. She thought about the ER, the outdated monitors, the overcrowded waiting room, the nurses who worked double shifts because there weren't enough hands, the patients who waited hours for care. She thought about all the lives that could be saved with resources like this, and she thought about Daniel, about the hospital that hadn't been able to save him. "This isn't about me," Claire said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Logan nodded. "I know. It's about them. The people who need you. The people who will need this hospital tomorrow, next month, next year." Claire looked up at him, and for the first time, she saw past the suit, past the wealth, past the polished exterior. She saw a man who had come face to face with his own mortality and had chosen to do something about it. "Okay," she said softly. Logan's face lit up. "Okay? Okay," Claire repeated, a small smile tugging at her lips. "But I have one condition." "Name it," Logan said immediately. "You don't name anything after me. If you're going to do this, do it for the right reasons, Not for recognition, not for publicity. Do it because it matters. Logan studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Deal. Amanda looked like she wanted to argue, but Logan raised a hand, stopping her. Miss Reynolds is right. We'll do this quietly. No press, no ceremony, just results. Claire exhaled, relief flooding through her. Thank you. No, Logan said, standing and extending his hand again. Thank you. As Claire shook his hand for the second time that day, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, not just in the hospital, not just in the city, but in her. And she wasn't sure yet if that was a good thing or a terrifying one. Logan walked her to the door, his security and attorney trailing behind. I'll be in touch, he said. The project will take a few months to get started, but I want you involved every step of the way. You know this place better than anyone. Claire nodded. I'll help however I can. As she turned to leave, Logan called out, Miss Reynolds? She looked back. Thank you, he said again, his voice quieter this time, for giving me a second chance. Claire's chest tightened. She managed a small smile. Use it well, Mr. Pierce. And with that, she walked back into the controlled chaos of the hospital, her mind spinning, her heart inexplicably full. She didn't know it yet, but that was the first of many conversations, the first of many moments, the first step towards something neither of them saw coming. Logan Pierce had built his empire from the ground up. At 42, he was the CEO of Pierce Capital, a venture capital firm that had invested in everything from tech startups to sustainable energy. He was known for being ruthless in business, calculating in negotiations, and distant in personal matters. He didn't do friendships. He didn't do relationships. He did deals. He did results. And he did them alone. His penthouse overlooked Elliott Bay, all glass and steel and minimalist design. It was beautiful, cold, empty. Logan had everything money could buy, and he'd never felt more hollow. The cardiac arrest had come out of nowhere. One moment he was walking out of a meeting, the next he was on the ground, his vision tunneling, his chest on fire. He didn't remember much after that. Just flashes, rain, a voice, hands on his chest, warmth. When he woke up in the hospital, the doctors told him he'd been lucky, that someone had performed CPR on him within seconds of his collapse, that if they hadn't, he'd be dead. Logan had demanded to see the security footage, and when he did, he couldn't look away. The woman, soaked to the bone, her face set in fierce determination, fighting to keep him alive, shielding him from the rain with her own body, whispering to him even though he couldn't hear. She didn't know who he was, didn't know if he had family, money, power. She just knew he needed help, and she gave it. Logan had spent his entire adult life surrounded by people who wanted something from him. Money, connections, status. But this woman, this nurse, had given him everything and asked for nothing. It haunted him, in the best possible way. Finding her hadn't been hard. A few phone calls, some discreet inquiries, and he had her name, her place of work, her background. Claire Reynolds, 29 years old, graduated top of her nursing class. No criminal record, no social media presence, no husband, no boyfriend. She lived alone in a modest apartment and worked herself to exhaustion at a public hospital. She was, by every measure, ordinary. And yet, Logan couldn't stop thinking about her. He told himself it was gratitude, that he just wanted to thank her properly, to do something meaningful. But deep down, he knew it was more than that. There was something about the way she'd looked at him in that conference room, not with awe, not with interest in his money, just with quiet, steady kindness, like he was a person, not a portfolio, not a deal, just a man. Amanda had tried to talk him out of the hospital funding. $3 million is a lot of money, Logan. You don't owe her that much. I owe her my life, Logan had said simply. $3 million is nothing, and he meant it. But the funding was just the beginning. Logan found himself thinking about Claire at odd times, during board meetings, while reviewing contracts, late at night, when the penthouse felt too big, too quiet. He wondered what she was doing, if she was working another brutal shift, if she ever thought about him. He told himself to let it go, to move on, but he couldn't, so he didn't. 2 weeks after their first meeting, Logan showed up at Mercy General again, this time unannounced. It was a Thursday afternoon, and the ER was slammed. Claire had been on her feet for 8 hours straight, bouncing between patients, starting IVs, taking vitals, comforting families. Her hair was falling out of its bun, her scrubs were wrinkled, and she was pretty sure she'd forgotten to eat lunch. Again. "Claire, room 4 needs a second round of antibiotics," one of the residents called out. "On it," she replied, grabbing the chart and heading down the hall. She pushed open the door to room 4 and froze. Logan Pierce was standing by the window, hands in his pockets, looking entirely out of place in his tailored navy suit. "Mr. Pierce," Claire said, startled. "What are you doing here? Are you okay? Did something happen?" Logan turned, and his face softened when he saw her. "I'm fine. I just wanted to see you." Claire blinked. "See me? Is that okay?" he asked, suddenly looking uncertain. It was strange, seeing a man who commanded boardrooms looking almost shy. Claire glanced at the chart in her hands, then back at him. "I'm working. I know. I'm sorry. I can wait." She should have said no, should have told him this wasn't appropriate, that she had patients to see, work to do. But something in his expression stopped her. He wasn't here as a millionaire. He was here as a man who, for some reason, wanted to see her. "Give me 20 minutes, she said. Logan's face lit up. "Take your time." Claire finished her rounds, her mind racing the entire time. Why was he here? What did he want? And why did her heart do that stupid little flutter when he smiled at her? When her shift finally slowed down, she found Logan in the hospital cafeteria, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. He stood when he saw her. "I wasn't sure how you took it, so I got cream and sugar on the side," he said, gesturing to the cups. Claire sat down, oddly touched by the gesture. "Black is fine, thank you." They sat in silence for a moment, and Claire realized she had no idea what to say. Logan seemed to be having the same problem. Finally, he spoke. "I know this is strange, me being here, but I couldn't stop thinking about what you said." "What I said?" Claire asked. "About using my second chance, well," Logan said. "I've been thinking about that a lot, about what that means, what I want it to mean." Claire wrapped her hands around the warm cup, listening. "I've spent the last 20 years building a company, making money, closing deals," Logan continued. "And I'm good at it. But that morning, when I woke up in the hospital, I realized something. I couldn't remember the last time I did something that actually mattered. Something that wasn't about profit margins or market share." He looked at her, his gaze intense. "You do that every day. You matter. To people you'll never see again. People who don't even know your name. And you don't do it for recognition or money. You just do it because it's right." Claire's throat tightened. "I'm not special, Mr. Pierce. I'm just a nurse." "You're wrong," Logan said quietly. "You're the most remarkable person I've ever met." The words hung in the air between them, and Claire didn't know what to do with them. She looked down at her coffee, her cheeks warming. "I don't know what you want me to say." "You don't have to say anything," Logan said. "I just wanted you to know, and I wanted to ask if maybe you'd let me take you to dinner, sometime, when you're not working." Claire's head snapped up. "Dinner?" "As a thank you," Logan added quickly, "and because I'd like to get to know you, if that's okay." Claire stared at him, her mind spinning. This didn't make sense. Men like Logan Pierce didn't ask women like her to dinner. They lived in different worlds, moved in different circles. But then she looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something she recognized. Loneliness. The same kind she saw in the mirror every morning. "Okay," she heard herself say. Logan blinked, as if he hadn't expected her to agree. "Okay. One dinner," Claire said, trying to keep her voice steady. "But nowhere fancy. I don't own anything that would fit in at a 5-star restaurant." Logan laughed, a real, genuine laugh that made him look years younger. "Deal. How about tomorrow night? I know a place. Quiet, casual, great food." "Tomorrow's my day off," Claire said. "That works." They exchanged numbers, and as Logan stood to leave, he paused. "Thank you, Claire." "For what?" "For giving me a reason to actually look forward to something," he said, and then he was gone, leaving Claire sitting alone in the cafeteria, her coffee growing cold, her heart doing things it hadn't done in years. If this story is already touching your heart, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button because you won't want to miss what happens next. Claire changed her outfit 4 times before settling on a simple blue dress and a cardigan. It was the nicest thing she owned that wasn't scrubs. She felt ridiculous. It was just dinner, just a thank you. It didn't mean anything. Except it kind of did, and that terrified her. Logan picked her up at 7, driving a sleek black car that probably cost more than she'd make in 5 years. But when he opened the door for her, he wasn't looking at the car. He was looking at her. "You look beautiful," he said simply. Claire's cheeks flushed. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." He smiled. "Shall we?" The restaurant was exactly as he'd promised. Small, tucked away on a quiet street, with warm lighting and the smell of fresh bread in the air. No photographers, no pretense, just good food and better conversation. They talked about everything. Claire told him about growing up in Oregon, about Daniel, about why she became a nurse. Logan told her about starting his company in his 20s, about the risks he'd taken, the failures he'd survived. He was surprisingly easy to talk to, not at all what she'd expected. Somewhere between the appetizer and the main course, Claire realized she was enjoying herself, really enjoying herself. And that scared her almost as much as it thrilled her. "Can I ask you something?" Logan said, setting down his fork. "Sure. Why nursing? I mean, I know about your brother, but why keep doing it? It's exhausting. You're underpaid, overworked. You could do anything else." Claire thought about it. "Because when I'm at work, I'm not just Claire. I'm someone who can help, someone who can make a difference, even if it's small. And after Daniel died, I needed that. I needed to feel like his death wasn't pointless, like maybe I could save someone else's little brother, or sister, or parent." Logan nodded slowly. "That makes sense." "What about you?" Claire asked. "Why venture capital? Why not something safer?" Logan smiled ruefully. "Honestly, control. I grew up poor, really poor, and I hated feeling helpless. So I built something where I'd never feel that way again." "And did it work?" Claire asked softly. Logan met her eyes. "Not the way I thought it would." The honesty in his voice took her breath away. They finished dinner and walked along the waterfront, the city lights reflecting off the dark water. It was cold, and Claire pulled her cardigan tighter. Without a word, Logan shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "You'll freeze," Claire protested. "I'll be fine," Logan said. They walked in comfortable silence, and Claire realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this at peace, this safe. When Logan drove her home, he walked her to the door. "Thank you for tonight," he said. "I had a really good time." "Me too," Claire admitted. Logan hesitated, then reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so tender, so unexpected, that Claire's breath caught. "Can I see you again?" he asked. Claire knew she should say no, knew this was dangerous, knew that letting someone in meant risking the kind of pain she'd spent years avoiding. But when she looked at Logan, she didn't see a millionaire. She didn't see power or status. She saw a man who'd been given a second chance. And maybe, just maybe, so had she. "Yes," she whispered. Logan smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. "Good night, Claire." "Good night, Logan." As she watched him drive away, Claire leaned against her door, her heart pounding. She didn't know what she was doing, didn't know where this was going, but for the first time in a long time, she was willing to find out. Over the next few weeks, Claire and Logan fell into a rhythm. It wasn't easy. Their schedules were polar opposites. Claire worked long, unpredictable shifts at the hospital. Logan had back-to-back meetings, business trips, board presentations, but somehow they made it work. Logan started showing up at the hospital during Claire's breaks, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with lunch, sometimes just to sit with her for 10 minutes in the cafeteria, talking about nothing and everything. The other nurses noticed. "Of course they did. Is that the guy who's funding the new ER wing?" one of them whispered to Claire one afternoon. "Yeah," Claire said, trying to sound casual. "We're just friends," her co-worker raised an eyebrow. "Friends who look at each other like that? Sure, Claire, whatever you say." Claire didn't have a response, because the truth was, she didn't know what they were. They hadn't labeled it, hadn't defined it, they just were. And for now, that was enough. Logan, for his part, found himself rearranging his life in ways he never had before. He turned down a meeting in New York because it conflicted with dinner plans with Claire. He left work early to catch her before her night shift started. He found himself smiling at his phone when she texted, something his assistant Amanda noticed immediately. "You're different," Amanda said one day, reviewing contracts in his office. Logan looked up. "Different how?" "Happier," she said simply. "Lighter. It's nice." Logan didn't argue, because she was right. For the first time in years, he felt like he was living, not just existing. And it was all because of a woman who saved his life and didn't ask for anything in return. One evening, Logan took Claire to a small jazz club tucked away in Capitol Hill. The music was smooth, the lighting dim, and the crowd relaxed. They sat close together in a corner booth, Claire's hand resting on the table between them. Halfway through the second set, Logan reached out and gently covered her hand with his. Claire's breath hitched. She looked at him, and in the low light, his eyes were warm, searching. "Is this okay?" he asked quietly. Claire nodded, her heart racing. "Yeah, it's okay." They stayed like that, hands intertwined, listening to the music. And when Logan drove her home that night, he walked her to the door like he always did. But this time, he didn't just say good night. He leaned in, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. His lips brushed hers, soft and tentative, like he was afraid she'd disappear. Claire's eyes fluttered closed, and she kissed him back, her hand coming up to rest against his chest. It was gentle, sweet, perfect. When they finally pulled apart, Logan rested his forehead against hers. "I've been wanting to do that for weeks," he admitted. Claire smiled, her cheeks flushed. "Me too." But as much as they tried to make it work, reality had a way of creeping in. Logan's world was one of power lunches, charity galas, and business deals worth millions. Claire's world was 12-hour shifts, patient crises, and making sure she had enough left over after rent to buy groceries. The differences were small at first. Logan would suggest a restaurant, and Claire would quietly look up the menu prices later, her stomach sinking. He'd offer to take her on a weekend trip, and she'd have to remind him she couldn't just take time off on a whim. He'd talk about his work, about investments and acquisitions, and Claire would nod along, understanding only half of it. And sometimes, late at night, she'd lie awake and wonder what someone like Logan Pierce saw in someone like her. One Saturday, Logan invited her to a charity gala his company was sponsoring. "It's formal," he said, almost apologetically, "but I'd really love for you to be there, with me." Claire hesitated. "Logan, I don't have anything to wear to something like that." "I'll take care of it," he said quickly. "Let me send someone over, a stylist. They'll bring options, whatever you want." Claire's chest tightened. "I don't need you to buy me a dress." Logan frowned, confused. "I didn't mean it like that. I just want you to feel comfortable." "I know," Claire said, forcing a smile, "but I can handle it." She ended up borrowing a dress from a co-worker and doing her own hair and makeup. When Logan picked her up, he looked stunned. "Claire, you look incredible." She smiled, but inside, she felt like a fraud. The gala was everything she'd feared. A massive ballroom filled with people in designer gowns and tuxedos. Champagne flowed freely. A live orchestra played. Everyone seemed to know everyone, and Claire felt like an outsider. Logan introduced her to colleagues, investors, friends. They were polite, but Claire could see the questions in their eyes. Who is she? Where did she come from? She smiled and nodded and tried to blend in, but she felt like she was drowning. Halfway through the evening, she excused herself and slipped outside onto the terrace. The cool night air was a relief. She leaned against the railing, closing her eyes, trying to steady her breathing. "You okay?" She turned. Logan was standing in the doorway, concern etched across his face. "I'm fine," she lied. "Just needed some air." Logan stepped closer. "You don't look fine." Claire exhaled. "I don't belong here, Logan. What are you talking about?" "This," she said, gesturing to the ballroom. "All of this, these people, this world, it's not me." Logan's jaw tightened. "You belong anywhere I am." "Do I?" Claire asked, her voice breaking. "Because right now, I feel like everyone in there is wondering what you're doing with someone like me." "Someone like you?" Logan repeated, his voice rising. "Claire, you're the most amazing person in that room. You save lives. You care about people. You're real. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" Claire looked away. "That doesn't change the fact that we're from different worlds." Logan reached out, gently tilting her chin so she'd look at him. "Then let's build a new one. Together." The sincerity in his voice broke something open in her chest. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But doubt was a hard thing to shake. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. Logan's face fell. "Do what? Be with me?" "Be in your world," she said. "I don't know how to fit into it, and I'm scared that eventually you'll realize I don't." Logan pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "You don't have to fit into my world, Claire. You're already changing it." She closed her eyes, letting herself believe it. Just for tonight. Despite the growing tension, the hospital project moved forward. True to his word, Logan had quietly begun the renovation of Mercy General's emergency care unit. New equipment arrived. Contractors started work. The staff was buzzing with excitement. Claire was involved in every step, consulting on what the ER needed most. It was surreal, seeing something she'd only dreamed about actually coming to life. One afternoon, Logan showed up at the hospital with the lead architect. They walked Claire through the updated plans, pointing out new trauma bays, state-of-the-art monitors, expanded waiting areas. "This is incredible," Claire breathed, staring at the blueprints. "This is going to save so many lives." Logan smiled. "That's the idea." As they toured the construction site, Claire felt a swell of gratitude so strong it almost brought her to tears. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for all of this." "You don't have to thank me," Logan said. "This is as much yours as it is mine." But even as the project brought them closer, it also highlighted their differences. Logan was used to writing checks and making things happen. Claire was used to working within limitations, doing more with less. One day, they argued about staffing. "We need at least 6 more nurses for the new unit to function properly," Claire said, reviewing the budget. "That's not in the current plan," Logan's project manager said. "Then we change the plan," Claire said firmly. The manager looked uncomfortable. "Miss Reynolds, with all due respect, the budget is already stretched." "Then stretch it more," Logan said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "If Claire says we need 6 more nurses, we need 6 more nurses." The manager nodded and left. Claire turned to Logan. "You can't just throw money at every problem." "Why not?" Logan asked. "If it solves the problem, what's wrong with that?" "Because not everyone has that option," Claire said. "Most hospitals don't have a millionaire writing checks. They have to make hard choices. And when this project is done, and you move on to the next thing, we'll still be here, dealing with those choices." Logan looked stung. "You think I'm going to just walk away?" "I don't know," Claire said honestly. "Are you?" The question hung between them, heavy and sharp. Logan took a breath. "No, I'm not. I'm in this, Claire, for the hospital, for you, for all of it." Claire wanted to believe him, but trust was hard, especially when everything felt so fragile. The cracks that had begun to form finally split wide open on a Tuesday night. Claire had been at the hospital for 14 hours straight. It had been one of those shifts, a multi-car pileup, a pediatric code, a cardiac arrest that they couldn't save. She was exhausted, emotionally drained, running on fumes. When she finally clocked out, all she wanted was to go home, take a shower, and sleep for 12 hours. But Logan had been texting her all evening. Dinner reservations, a surprise, something special. Claire's chest tightened. She didn't have the energy for special. She texted him, "Can we reschedule? It's been a really hard day." His response came seconds later. "I'm already at your place. I brought food. Just come home." Claire wanted to cry. She appreciated the gesture. She did, but all she wanted was to be alone. When she got home, Logan was waiting outside her building with takeout bags and a hopeful smile. "Hey," he said gently, "I thought you could use some comfort food." Claire forced a smile. "Thank you, that's really sweet." They went inside, and Logan set up the food on her small kitchen table. Claire sat down, but she couldn't eat. She just stared at the containers, her mind replaying the code that didn't work, the family she'd had to comfort, the child she couldn't save. "Claire," Logan's voice was soft. "Talk to me." She looked up, and the concern in his eyes broke her. "I lost a patient today," she said, her voice hollow. "A little boy, 7 years old. We did everything, and it wasn't enough." Logan reached across the table, taking her hand. "I'm so sorry." Claire pulled her hand back. "You don't understand." "Then help me understand," Logan said. "You can't," Claire said, her voice rising. "You live in a world where problems get solved with money and connections and power. My world doesn't work like that. Sometimes, no matter what you do, people die, and you can't fix it. You can't buy your way out of it. You just have to live with it." Logan looked like she'd slapped him. "I know I can't fix everything, Claire, but I'm trying. I'm trying to help, to be here for you." "I don't need you to fix me," Claire said, tears spilling over. "I don't need your money or your grand gestures. I just need—" She trailed off, her shoulders shaking. "What?" Logan asked desperately. "What do you need?" "I don't know," Claire whispered. "And that's the problem. I don't know how to let you in. I don't know how to be the person you need me to be." "I don't need you to be anyone but yourself," Logan said, his voice breaking. "Claire, I don't care about the galas or the world I come from. I care about you. Just you." Claire looked at him, her heart shattering. "But what if that's not enough? What if I'm not enough?" Logan stood, crossing to her side of the table. He knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "You are more than enough. You're everything." Claire sobbed, and Logan pulled her into his arms, holding her as she broke apart. And for a while, it was enough. Just the two of them. No expectations, no pressure, just comfort. The next morning, Claire woke up in Logan's arms on her couch. Sunlight streamed through the window, and for a moment, everything felt peaceful. Logan stirred, opening his eyes. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey," Claire replied. They lay there in silence, and Claire realized something. She'd spent so long protecting herself, keeping people at arm's length, that she'd forgotten what it felt like to be held, to be cared for, to let someone see her at her worst and not run. "I'm sorry about last night," she said. "Don't be," Logan said. "You needed to let it out. I'm glad I was here." Claire turned to face him. "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be in a relationship. I haven't let anyone close in a really long time." Logan brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Neither have I. So we'll figure it out together." "What if we can't?" Claire asked. "What if we're too different?" Logan smiled. "Then we'll be different together." It was such a simple answer, and yet it settled something in Claire's chest. Maybe they didn't have to have all the answers. Maybe they just had to be willing to try. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay?" Logan asked, hope flickering in his eyes. "Okay," Claire repeated. "Let's figure it out. Together." Logan kissed her forehead, and Claire let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe this could work, that maybe, despite everything, they could build something real. But just as things seemed to be falling into place, Claire's phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. "Claire, we need you. Emergency. Multi-trauma incoming. All hands on deck." Claire's heart sank. She looked at Logan. "I have to go." "I know," he said, sitting up. "Go. Save lives." Claire hesitated, then kissed him quickly. "I'll call you later. I'll be here," Logan promised. As Claire rushed out the door, pulling on her scrubs, she felt the weight of her two worlds pulling at her again. But this time, she wasn't running from it. She was running toward it. And maybe that was enough. Have you ever felt torn between two parts of your life, between duty and love? Drop a comment and let me know. And don't forget to hit that like button if you're still with Claire and Logan on this journey. The emergency Claire had been called to was as bad as they come. A tour bus had collided with a semi-truck on the interstate. 15 patients were incoming, ranging from minor injuries to critical trauma. The ER erupted into controlled chaos. Claire moved on autopilot, triaging, starting IVs, assisting with intubations. Hours blurred together, voices calling out vitals, the rhythmic beep of monitors, the metallic smell of blood mixing with antiseptic. By the time the last patient was stabilized, it was almost midnight. Claire's hands were shaking as she peeled off her gloves. She was physically and emotionally spent. One of the senior doctors, Dr. Patel, pulled her aside. You did incredible work tonight, Claire. We saved a lot of lives because of you. Claire nodded, too tired to respond. As she walked to the locker room, her phone buzzed. Multiple texts from Logan. Hope everything's okay. Let me know when you're done. Still thinking about you. Be safe. Claire's heart squeezed. She typed out a quick reply. Long night. Heading home soon. Talk tomorrow? His response was immediate. I'll come to you. You don't have to, Claire typed. I want to, Logan replied. And 20 minutes later, he was waiting for her in the hospital parking lot, leaning against his car with a thermos of tea and a soft blanket. Claire nearly cried at the sight of him. You didn't have to do this, she said. I know, Logan said, handing her the tea. But I wanted to. They sat in his car, the heater running, the city quiet around them. Claire sipped the tea, feeling the warmth spread through her. Thank you, she said, for being here, for understanding. Logan reached over and took her hand. Always. In that moment, Claire realized something. She was falling in love with him. Maybe she already had, and it terrified her. A few days later, Logan asked Claire to meet his mother. She's visiting from Boston, he explained over dinner at Claire's apartment, and I'd really like her to meet you. Claire's stomach flipped. Your mother? She's not scary, I promise, Logan said with a smile. She's actually really kind. I think you'll like her. Claire wasn't so sure. Meeting the mother of a man like Logan felt like stepping into a whole new level of seriousness, but she also knew it mattered to him. Okay, she said. When? This weekend. I'll pick you up Saturday at noon. Saturday came too quickly. Claire changed outfits 3 times before settling on a simple dress and flats. When Logan arrived, he kissed her cheek. You look perfect. I'm nervous, Claire admitted. Don't be, Logan said. She's going to love you. They drove to a waterfront restaurant where Logan's mother, Margaret Pierce, was waiting. She was elegant, poised, with kind eyes and a warm smile. You must be Claire, Margaret said, standing to greet her. Logan hasn't stopped talking about you. Claire blushed. It's so nice to meet you, Mrs. Pierce. Please, call me Margaret, she said, gesturing for them to sit. Lunch was surprisingly easy. Margaret asked Claire about her work, her background, her family. She listened with genuine interest, nodding thoughtfully. Logan told me you saved his life, Margaret said at one point. Claire shrugged modestly. I just did what anyone would do. Not anyone, Margaret said, her gaze sharp but kind. Most people would have walked by. You didn't. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. Claire felt a lump form in her throat. I'm glad I was there. After lunch, as they walked along the waterfront, Margaret pulled Claire aside while Logan took a phone call. Can I tell you something? Margaret asked. Claire nodded. Logan hasn't brought anyone to meet me in over 10 years, Margaret said. He's always been so focused on work, on building his empire. I worried he'd forgotten how to let people in. But with you, he's different, lighter, happier. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Claire's eyes stung. I'm not doing anything special. I'm just me. Exactly, Margaret said with a smile. And that's exactly what he needs. When Logan rejoined them, he looked between the two women. Everything okay? Perfect, Margaret said, winking at Claire. As the weeks turned into months, Claire and Logan's relationship deepened. They learned each other's rhythms, each other's needs. Logan learned to recognize when Claire needed space after a hard shift. Claire learned that beneath Logan's confident exterior was someone who craved connection just as much as she did. The hospital project continued to progress. The new emergency care unit was taking shape, and with it, hope was spreading through the entire staff. But the demands on Claire only increased. She was working longer hours, consulting on the project, training new staff, and still handling her regular patient load. One evening, during a particularly hectic shift, Claire felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. She braced herself against the nurse's station, trying to steady her breathing. Claire, you okay? One of her co-workers asked. I'm fine, Claire said, even as black spots danced across her vision. She wasn't fine. The room tilted, and the last thing she remembered was the floor rushing up to meet her. When she woke up, she was in a hospital bed. Logan was sitting beside her, his face pale, his hand gripping hers. Hey, he said softly when her eyes opened. You scared the hell out of me. What happened? Claire croaked. You collapsed, Logan said. Exhaustion, dehydration. The doctors said you've been running yourself into the ground. Claire closed her eyes. I'm fine. No, you're not, Logan said, his voice tight. Claire, you can't keep doing this to yourself. I'm a nurse, Logan. This is what I do. Not like this, Logan said. Not at the expense of your own health. Claire pulled her hand from his. You don't understand. Then help me understand, Logan said, frustration creeping into his voice. Why do you keep pushing yourself like this? Why can't you just take care of yourself for once? Because if I stop, I'll fall apart, Claire said, her voice breaking. If I stop, I'll have to think about everything I've lost, everyone I couldn't save, and I can't do that. I can't. Logan's expression softened. He reached out, gently cupping her face. You don't have to carry all of that alone, Claire. Let me help you. Let me in. Tears streamed down Claire's cheeks. I don't know how. Then let me show you, Logan whispered. And for the first time, Claire let herself truly lean on someone. She let herself be vulnerable. She let herself be loved. The doctors kept Claire in the hospital overnight for observation. Logan never left her side. He sat in the uncomfortable chair next to her bed, holding her hand, talking quietly about nothing and everything. Tell me about Daniel, he said at one point. Claire looked at him, surprised. What do you want to know? Everything, Logan said. I want to know about the person who made you who you are. So Claire told him. About Daniel's laugh, the way he asked a million questions about everything, the way he looked at the world with wonder, about the day he died, and how a part of her died with him. I think that's why I push so hard, Claire admitted. Because if I can save enough people, maybe it'll balance out. Maybe it'll make his death mean something. Logan was quiet for a long moment. Claire, his death already means something. It means you became the kind of person who runs toward people who need help, not away from them. That's his legacy. Not how many lives you save, but the fact that you care enough to try. Claire's tears came again, but this time they felt different, lighter, like something was finally beginning to heal. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For seeing me. All of me. Even the broken parts. Logan leaned forward and kissed her forehead. You're not broken, Claire. You're human, and that's what I love about you. The word hung in the air between them. Love. Logan's eyes widened slightly, as if he hadn't meant to say it out loud. But he didn't take it back. I love you, he said again, more firmly this time. I didn't plan to. I didn't expect to. But I do. I love you, Claire Reynolds. Claire's heart felt like it might burst. I love you too, she said, the words spilling out before she could stop them. I've been so scared to say it, but I do. I love you. Logan smiled, that genuine, warm smile that made everything else fade away. He stood, leaned over the hospital bed, and kissed her, soft and tender and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Claire was smiling through her tears. This is kind of ironic, isn't it? She said. Me in a hospital bed, you by my side. It's like we've come full circle. Logan laughed. Except this time, you're the one who needs saving. And you're here, Claire said softly. I'll always be here, Logan promised. 3 months later, the new emergency care unit at Mercy General was complete. It was state-of-the-art, fully staffed, and already saving lives. The hospital held a small ceremony to mark the opening. Claire stood beside Logan, her hand in his, as the director gave a speech thanking the donors and the staff. But most of all, the director said, we owe this to Claire Reynolds, whose dedication and compassion inspired this entire project. Applause filled the room, and Claire felt her cheeks flush. Logan squeezed her hand. You did this, he whispered. We did this, Claire corrected. After the ceremony, Claire and Logan walked through the new unit. It was surreal, seeing her vision come to life. New trauma bays, advanced monitors, spacious waiting areas. There's one more thing, Logan said, leading her to a quiet corner. On the wall was a plaque. It read, In memory of Daniel Reynolds, may his light continue to shine through the lives saved here. Claire's breath caught. She turned to Logan, tears streaming down her face. You did this. I wanted to honor him, Logan said, and honor you. Everything you do because of him. He deserves to be remembered. Claire threw her arms around Logan, sobbing into his chest. Thank Thank you so much. Logan held her tight. You don't have to thank me. This is what love does. It honors, it remembers, it builds. And in that moment, Claire knew. She was completely, irrevocably in love with Logan Pierce. 6 months after the ER opened, Logan took Claire back to the spot where it all began. The small cafe in downtown Seattle. They sat by the window, sipping coffee, watching the rain fall gently outside. Do you remember this place? Logan asked. Claire smiled. How could I forget? This is where everything changed. It is, Logan said. He reached across the table, taking her hand. Claire, that day, you didn't just save my life. You gave me a reason to live it. You showed me what it means to care, to give, to love, without expecting anything in return. And I don't want to spend another day without you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Claire's eyes widened. Logan, I know we come from different worlds, Logan said, opening the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. But I don't care about that. I care about you, about us, about the life we can build together. So, Claire Reynolds, will you marry me? Tears streamed down Claire's face. She looked at the man who had started as a stranger, become a patient, turned into a friend, and somehow, against all odds, became the love of her life. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry me. Logan's face broke into the biggest smile she'd ever seen. He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. Around them, the cafe erupted in applause. Claire laughed through her tears, and Logan held her close. I love you, he whispered. I love you too, Claire said, and she meant it, with every fiber of her being. 1 year later, Claire and Logan stood together at a community health fair organized by Mercy General. The event was free to the public, offering screenings, vaccinations, and education. Claire, now the head nurse of the emergency care unit, was in her element. She moved from booth to booth, checking on patients, chatting with families, making sure everything ran smoothly. Logan was right beside her, sleeves rolled up, handing out water bottles and directing foot traffic. He'd become a regular fixture at the hospital, volunteering, funding programs, and learning from the people who dedicated their lives to helping others. At one point, a reporter approached them. Mr. Pierce, can I ask you a question? Logan smiled. Sure. A year ago, you donated millions to this hospital. Some people said it was just a publicity stunt. What do you say to that? Logan glanced at Claire, who was kneeling beside a little girl, putting a bandage on her scraped knee. I'd say they're wrong, Logan said simply. This was never about publicity. It was about gratitude, about legacy, about making sure that what happened to me, what could have been the end, became a beginning, not just for me, but for everyone who walks through those doors. The reporter nodded. And the woman beside you, she's your wife now, correct? She is, Logan said, his voice full of pride. And the best decision I ever made. Claire stood and walked over, slipping her hand into Logan's. What are we talking about? She asked. Just telling the truth, Logan said, kissing her temple. As the day wound down and the sun began to set, Claire and Logan sat on a bench overlooking the city. You know, Claire said, resting her head on Logan's shoulder, a year ago, I never would have imagined this, any of this. Me neither, Logan admitted, but I'm glad it happened. Me too, Claire said. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the world go by. Two people from completely different worlds who had found each other in the most unexpected way. A nurse who risked everything to save a stranger. A millionaire who learned that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in love, compassion, and connection. And together, they built a life that honored both. Sometimes, the most extraordinary love stories begin in the most ordinary moments. A rainy street, a stranger in need, a heartbeat brought back to life. Claire and Logan didn't set out to fall in love. They didn't plan it. But life rarely goes according to plan. And sometimes, the detours lead you exactly where you need to be. Because at the end of the day, love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about showing up. It's about being willing to take a risk. It's about seeing someone, truly seeing them, and choosing them anyway. Claire saved Logan's life that rainy morning in Seattle, but in the months and years that followed, he saved hers too. Not with money, not with power, but with patience, kindness, and a love that refused to give up. And together, they proved that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is open your heart and let someone in, because you never know. The stranger you save today might just become the love of your life tomorrow. Years passed, and their story became something of a legend at Mercy General. New nurses would hear about the woman who saved a man's life in the rain, and the millionaire who fell in love with her. Some thought it was too perfect to be true, but those who knew Claire and Logan knew better. They saw Logan showing up at the hospital every week, not as a donor, but as a volunteer. They saw him in the waiting room, comforting families. They saw him learning CPR, taking first aid courses, trying to understand the world his wife lived in. They saw Claire blooming in ways she never had before, still dedicated, still passionate, but no longer carrying the weight of the world alone. She laughed more, smiled more, let herself rest. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Logan surprised Claire with a trip back to Oregon, to her hometown, to the cemetery where Daniel was buried. They stood together at his grave, Claire's hand in Logan's. "I wanted to tell him thank you," Logan said quietly. Claire looked at him, confused. "For what?" "For making you who you are," Logan said. "For giving you that heart that couldn't walk past someone who needed help. Because if you hadn't had that heart, you would have walked past me that day, and I never would have found you." Claire's tears fell freely. "He would have liked you," she said. "I hope so," Logan said, "because I owe him everything." They placed flowers on the grave, and as they walked back to the car, Claire felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. Daniel's death had broken her, but loving Logan had helped put her back together, not by erasing the pain, but by showing her that it was okay to carry it, that she didn't have to carry it alone. Back in Seattle, their life continued. Claire still worked at Mercy General, though now with better hours and more support. Logan expanded his foundation, focusing on healthcare initiatives in underserved communities. They bought a house together, not a mansion, but a comfortable home with a yard and a porch swing. They talked about having kids someday, maybe adopting, maybe both. They fought sometimes, like all couples do, about work, about boundaries, about whose turn it was to do the dishes. But they always came back to each other, always chose each other, because that's what love is. Not the dramatic moments or the grand gestures, but the choice, made over and over again, to stay, to work through the hard parts, to build something that lasts. One evening, 10 years after that rainy Sunday morning, Claire came home from work to find Logan in the kitchen, cooking dinner. "Hey," she said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Hey yourself," he said, turning to kiss her. "How was your day?" "Long. Good. Saved a life." Logan smiled. "Of course you did." They ate dinner on the porch, watching the sun set over the city, and Claire thought about how far they'd come, from strangers to patients, to friends, to lovers, to partners. "What are you thinking about?" Logan asked. "Just how lucky I am," Claire said. "Funny," Logan said. "I was thinking the same thing." He took her hand, and they sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from years of truly knowing someone. And Claire realized that this, right here, was everything she'd ever needed. Not the grand love story, not the fairy tale ending, just this, a quiet evening, a hand to hold, a person who chose her every single day. Sometimes the greatest rewards don't come from what we receive, but from what we're willing to give, even when no one's watching. Claire gave Logan his life back that rainy morning, and in return, he gave her something she'd lost long ago. Hope. Not hope that the pain would go away, but hope that she could carry it and still find joy, still find love, still find purpose. And that, more than any amount of money, more than any recognition or praise, was the greatest gift of all. If this story touched your heart, please do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment letting me know what you thought. Did Claire and Logan's story inspire you? Have you ever experienced a moment that changed your life? I'd love to hear about it. And if you're new here, welcome. This channel is all about real stories of love, hope, and second chances. So go ahead and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join our community. Because every week, We bring you stories that remind you that love is real, hope is powerful, and every single one of us deserves a second chance. Thank you so much for watching Claire and Logan's story. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves. And remember, sometimes the greatest rewards come not from what we receive, but from what we're willing to give. The stranger you help today might just change your life tomorrow.